Okay, somebody's coming up. Either? No?
Okay,
hello. I'm Janardhan Bhatt from TP Vision, from the ex-Philips R&D organization. The question is, somewhere you mentioned that the government mandates are necessary for initial starting the things, but not for long-term success. But what we are seeing now in the industry is that most of the time, since the industries are in a cutthroat competition, and since implementing the energy efficiency activities doesn't give a short-term benefit, it's a long-term benefit, most of the time, unless there is a government mandates are not there, industry will not respond for that. So, for example, you can see that especially if you are dealing mainly with the Europes, you can see that there are, every time Europe, USA, there is a mandatory requirement for the product has to meet certain requirements. And it is become like an EMC, that's aerodynamic compatibility, it is becoming a mandatory. So unless government take these type of activities, that you should meet these things, I don't think that we can't say there is no long-term success. I think there's a long-term success.
Again, I think what we try to say there is, yes, I think when government starts an initiative, there are multiple types of initiatives. One is the financing, like say tax benefits or in terms of direct incentives, etc. That is something which cannot go on forever, right? Like we are seeing with subsidies for solar industry, what happened? I think the whole thing collapsed. They just went overboard and it collapsed. So what we're trying to say, one is the restrictions in terms of you can get in certain types of products into the country, etc. I think which can sustain, because obviously there is no financial outflow from the government. But wherever there is a financial support offered by the government, that is not something sustainable, and we are trying to tell that the industry should find a commercial arrangement for itself to sustain on a long-term basis and grow on a long-term basis.
There are certain countries even give the tax benefits, so then how you can justify that? Not a
no, but the question is how long? What I'm telling is it's not about not giving it, the question is how long can a country giving that, can the government support forever? And at some point in any industry, I think the industry should find a commercially viable mechanism for them to kind of keep sustaining and growing. Because the scaling up will be a problem. The government incentives, the challenge that is, how long can you keep giving and scaling up the, say, the whole TP? I think that becomes a challenge in many countries.
I can give an example. For example, in Australia, if you want any government purchases, it has to meet certain classes of energy efficiency. Otherwise, you cannot sell to the government officers. Sure. These type of things.
Yeah, that is more in terms of policy for procurement, or policy for import, policy for product, say, benchmark. But what I'm telling is beyond that, beyond in terms of providing incentives, providing subsidies, providing tax benefits. That becomes a challenge in our business.
Thanks.
There's such a question? Somebody? Oh, Michelle. Okay, maybe we'll go to first. Yeah, this.
Hi Ravi, I'm Michelle from SEI. Just wanted to comment that I think in your presentation you have not quite covered the market outlook for green data centers, because with the push towards a knowledge economy and really with cloud computing, right? There should be opportunities in this. Perhaps you'd like to comment on this. And also another question is, Singapore has ambition to be to position ourselves as a clean tech sector for the region. So how are we, how's our progress in this area relative to, let's say, Japan?
Sure. The green data center is a very good question. In fact, I've not covered it here because my theme was industrial. But I think if I get the statistics right, data centers consume about 1.5% of the global electricity produced globally. So that's a big, I would say, energy customer. And I think we have seen a huge awareness, because I think the proportion of OPEX in a data center which they spend on energy is much higher than what a normal manufacturing and process company spends, because for them I think there are a lot of other raw material inputs, I think, which kind of skew their overall O&M or the viability of these energy efficiency initiatives. Whereas for a data center, I think energy is a very big component, both in terms of chilled cold water or the say aircon and the power. So I think I would say in the last 3 to 4 years, the biggest the technological and the market gain has happened in the data center space. be it in terms of servers, be it in terms of UPS being used, in terms of the say like precision aircon, the way I think they cool the hot air, cold air containment. So a lot of different technologies, products which are currently being used have become much commercially advanced for the last 3 to 5 years. And I think awareness is not an issue with data centers because I think they're quite tech savvy. I think they're quite aware in terms of their own, I think, operation cost and expenditure. So I think the reason why I probably did not club green industries with this is because I think the industry contour is very different there. I think one is there is active government support. Number two is I think the industry itself is quite, I think, proactive in terms of embracing these new technologies in a data center environment. And also there are equally good products and solutions being developed and the industry is willing to implement it. So I think we have seen a lot of advances there, not only here of course in the US and also in Japan. So I think that is an industry, I would say from that point of view there is more opportunity and less concern in a data center environment.
Okay, thank you. Is it okay to sit down and ask
Sure,
questions?
sure.
Yeah, I want to follow up on my previous question. Now, in terms of research and development, how much is the investment happening in energy efficiency sector as such? Okay, in research and development, specifically, say in Singapore or Malaysia, probably there may be some investment in Japan and Korea probably, but how is it happening in Singapore? One part. And second, I just want to take your view. Because whenever I receive a credit card, some promotional material, and I consistently find out probably there is some 10% discount, 50% discount on your petrol and gasoline. And on the one hand, government is taxing. I don't know why the government is not looking at it. Because, okay. And credit cards are giving you those kind of discounts. You fill up your tank and you get, say, 10% discount. So isn't it acting against the energy efficiency measures and even reduction in pollution measures? Thank you.
I think that's interesting question, the last one. But we are in a market economy, right? Obviously you cannot stop anyone from promoting their products. And I think, which is true with I think that's a big, say, contradiction lies with the utility industry themselves, right? They're spending more money to sell less. What is smart grid trying to do? Or any improvement or any automation in the utility sector eventually means I think they're trying to, of course I think they're trying to balance demand and supply. But beyond that, probably utility or the energy is the only industry which is say spending more money to eventually sell less of their own product or to a even given customer, right? So I don't think anybody can regulate it obviously because that's something in a market economy you can't say you don't promote this product or you don't offer incentives. I think it's very tough to regulate.
On the one hand, we have got taxes on that. So
you mean COE and things like that or?
Yes.
Petrol tax, okay, tax.
Petrol taxes.
Yeah.
Like, the reason for those taxes is definitely you want to regulate that for whatever reason. So I'm just saying, this is one of the maybe discrepancies I found it, and probably there is a reason need to something about it. Something about nano.
And on the question R&D, I think it's one of the challenges with we see a lot of R&D investment oriented reports. The problem is I think the energy efficiency itself is such a broad topic. I think today clean tech includes your renewable energy, includes energy efficiency, includes smart grids, includes IT which goes with that. So I think it's very tough to decipher what kind of investment actually goes into what we called or what we try to define as energy efficiency in this context, energy improvement. Because even now, I think what we are trying to do here is more of a process and practice improvement. It's not so much about a product or R&D. Because I don't think you still need to do R&D to improve or increase what you're doing. This is purely a process improvisation, purely taking, of course, there are a lot of new products which need to go into this. Obviously, we talk about variables because it drives, I think, so that you take out the normal one, put a VFD, obviously you gain so much energy saving. So that is a new product. But I think what I'm saying is a lot of products are available today with which you can dramatically improve the energy efficiency. So it's, I think, you don't need to, you can, but then it's not probably critical at this point for the industry to measure what R&D goes into it for its own success, because there is enough technology available with which it can run for so many years now. But because, and a lot of other research happens in the research in terms of materials for solar or in terms of wind, how can we like make it lighter, better, etc. so on and so forth. So a lot of developments happening. But the industry EE probably does not need those R&D yet because there's room for growth with what it is.
Because one of your slides you mentioned there is a lack of trust among the solutions. So please
that is because they still not use the not so much about R&D. I think it's implementation issue. I think in terms of what is the return on investment, what is the implementation, trust on implementation, trust on people who implement it. I think it's and that ecosystem part.
Maybe I think we have time for
Any more questions?
2 more questions. Yeah. Two. Anybody? Room 1.
Okay. Tom from NTU, the university. Okay, I think the government has been putting a lot of effort trying to promote energy efficiency, like for example the green mark. But then we observe that in Singapore, as a tropical country, we still find many places overcooled. Like people are wearing jackets. Like during the British time, we were all the servants are civil servants are wearing shorts. I remember the police are all wearing shorts. And here a lot of people are wearing jacket in the aircon space. Isn't the government trying to do anything to regulate it, like requiring the aircon space to be set warmer, so that people are comfortable instead of the people are getting too cold?
True, I think which is very true. I think all of us face this, and the added the problem is you come in and out of such drastic temperature changes. I think it's easy to get infections and cold. I think Japan has taken a big step towards that. I think they've introduced what's called a cool biz. So every summer, because Japan gets quite hot, at least the southern part, Tokyo and all the region. So they said we can, in indoor temperatures need to be 27 degrees. Right? So they mandated it, and all the businesses adapted. Right? So I think Singapore we keep it at 80 degrees. So obviously there's a big room for improvement, and that is going to lead to a significant saving. But the thing is, it's also about the mindset and the educating people again, in terms of being taken for granted, right? In terms of we want always at 18, 20 degrees when we get in the room. So how do we educate and change that mindset? But one interesting thing I find is, I think in the schools today, I think this is something which I find it discussed at the primary school level in terms of the aircon, in terms of the energy efficiency. So I think over a period, I think it definitely will change. But will the government be prepared to mandate it like Japan? I don't know. Because this is something day-to-day comfort based issue, and I think all of us find it a big challenge in all our offices. It's either too cold or when we come out it's too warm. Actually, it's a big issue. It's true, and it's something quite obvious. I think 2 things I see in Singapore which is quite obvious, which can be changed. One is the aircon, indoor aircon. Number 2 is the plastic bags. I think. So plastic bags are freely given out. I think they don't hesitate to give you extra bags. I think you say I'm okay with 2, then they'll give you 3 bags and also market. So that's something which can be changed easily, and which I think again it's a consumer say practice which needs to change. All of us, I think.
Maybe we ask for one last question. If anyone in the room 1 and room 2, anybody wants to ask the last final question of the day? Then maybe I can take the question. Sure. I was just wondering, because you had a slide that shows various countries and the haves and have not this country's government has been doing. I just wonder if there's any country that's particularly good at promoting energy efficiency that perhaps Singapore itself can actually reference or even take some of the case studies. Because I think previously when you started off, some of the concerns is that not enough case studies for private entities to actually learn from. Maybe you can share.
Yeah, I think again we've seen some of the European countries, Japan. I think some of these countries having good policies. Again, I think on the industrial side, on the building side, I think we have probably enough policies and willingness. I would say, I'll put it that way. Not in terms of that temperature, but in terms of the overall, the green and the energy efficient solutions being implemented and used. But I think the 2 other remaining issues are, I think the transport. and also the industries. So it's tough for the governments to mandate an industry to do certain things. So this is where I think I say it's the overall ecosystem and industry themselves have to kind of move ahead with that. And again, here probably I think where the government could act is more in terms of the SMEs actually, because large industries, again, they have their own, like I mentioned, their own ways of doing things. But the SME sectors where I think definitely there needs to be more hand-holding and support and trust, either it is in terms of top-down or in terms of providing supporting infrastructure to grow this. Maybe this is where I think we can look at countries like Japan or European countries, I think where that could be good for.
Thanks. All right. Thank you, Ravi. We reached the end of Q&A. May I now invite Mr. Ong to present this 10-year anniversary book, Our Environment Safeguard Nature Cherish as a token appreciation to Ravi. John, could you please take a group photo?
Punch of energy.